JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is a series that has one of the most iconic power systems in Battle Shonen, and that is the usage of stands. Stands are the physical manifestation of a person's spirit, and this allows them to fight battles alongside the stand user. We were first introduced to stands in part 3 of the JoJo's anime, and they were the replacement for Hamon as the main power system, and ever since then every part has focused on stands, which has led to some of the craziest fights in the series. I think that stands are some of the most creative and most well written power system in anime. So this video will explain why stands are so creative and why they're so loved by anime fans. So the first thing I want to go over about stands is how unique they are in the world of JoJo. And what makes it so good is that every stand differs from each other, meaning that they don't have the same abilities or the same attributes. You have Star Platinum, that is known for its fast attack power and great reflexes. You have God Experience, who can give life to any object, including living things. And you have Echo's Act 3, that uses gravity as his main ability. And there are so much more examples, but generally every stand is unique in terms of their design and their abilities, giving a good sense of identity to these stands. And that's because stands are the physical manifestation of a person's mental energy, so making all of these stands different from each other, it also reflects the personalities of the stand users who use these stands in battle. Sticky Fingers is a stand that uses zippers in order to fight, and this is reflected in Butcherati's design, which has a lot of zippers on his outfit. Killer Queen can turn people into bombs, which is very fitting for a serial killer like Yoshikage Kira, who kills people in secret without getting caught. Fugo's stand, Purple Haze, is a very deadly and aggressive stand due to its ability, and seems to have a high temper, and this perfectly reflects Fugo's personality as someone who cannot control his temper, and can get very brutal when he gets angry. So because stands reflect the personality of their stand user, this means that all the stand designs are different from each other. You'll have stands that have humanoid shapes, and then you'll have some stands that have completely unnatural shapes. You have stands like Hermit Purple, Mr. President, and Geb, which do not have humanoid shapes. And then there are stands that can resemble weapons, ships, cars, and even the sun itself.
I beg your pardon?
The possibilities are endless, and there's this variety of stands that also makes the characters more memorable because of this huge variety of the stands. Although JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is about the Joestar family, because of the unique stands and the personalities, the side characters who are part of the main JoJo's group, they become more memorable, and they get to have several fights of their own because of their stands. And since every stand is different from each other, it also means that every fight in JoJo is always different from each other, and they offer something new and fresh. Take Stardust Crusaders for example. Even though the series had a monster of the week type of formula, because every stand had a different ability, the fights were always something different and it didn't feel repetitive. The Stardust Crusaders team always had to think of new and creative ways to deal with the enemy stand as they were on their way to fight Dio. You have Jotaro playing a game of poker against Darby, with him staking his mother's soul in the line, and then you have a fight like Iggy vs Pet Shop in the same show. This high variety of battles is part of what makes a great battle system, because not every fight will feel the same, and it leads to very complex fights that will constantly challenge the main cast, instead of just relying on the power of friendship or power-ups. Take Giorno vs Babyface for example. Giorno didn't beat Babyface just by powering up. He had to beat him by tricking him into thinking he absorbed his hand, but the hand was actually the bug that got turned into a hand, and this led to the death of Babyface. And then when you go to Giorno's fight against Black Sabbath, in order to expose Black Sabbath to the sunlight, Giorno had to continuously give life to the tree by touching his roots, which turned the tree to dust, exposing Black Sabbath to sunlight. Giorno was then able to kill him by the barrage of punches, but he needed to overcome the ability of Black Sabbath first before punching it to death. So although both fights involved Giorno, because of the enemy stands being completely different from each other, both fights ended up being different and posed different challenges for Giorno to overcome, to where he needed to use God Experience's ability in creative ways. And this happens in damn near every fight ever since we were introduced to stands as a new power system. And it is honestly impressive that Araki can constantly think of new stands abilities for the main characters to try and overcome, from part 3 all the way to part 9 currently. Another aspect of this power system that makes stands so well written is the fact that all stands are not created equal. You have stands that are well suited for close range combat, long range combat, and you even have stands that are just not well suited for battle. Close range stands typically have high attack power and speed, but the downside is that they have a very short range, so they would need to be in close proximity with their opponents to make use of their high physical strength. Examples are Star Platinum, The World, and Crazy Diamond. With long range stands, they are the opposite of close range stands, in that they have a much longer range and can be up to several kilometers away from the user. This is good for stands that specialize in ambushing their opponents from far away, but the drawback is that they typically lack the physical strength that close range stands possess. And due to the long range stands being far away, this means that the stand user will be left unprotected if they were to be caught by their enemies. Examples include Manhattan Transfer, Lovers, and Aerosmith. You also have stands that are automated, and they only operate based on their preset instructions. Normally, a stand user must consciously control their stand and use their abilities, but with automated stands, they can still operate without the stand user even being there. Examples are Sheer Heart Attack, Black Sabbath, and Notorious B.I.G., which is a stand that only activates upon the user's death. And unlike with natural stands, where damaging them damages the user, damaging the automated stands will not affect the stand user, and even if the stand is destroyed, the stand user might not even be aware of it. So this addition of automated stands further increases the complexity of the power system, and makes the stands feel a lot more unique than they already are. So because each stand falls under a type of category, based on its attack range with different strengths and weaknesses, this makes the fight a lot more strategic, as the outcome of the fight does not depend on power levels. There are certain rules that each stand is bound by, and it shows a sense of balance in the power system. The way a typical JoJo fight goes is that firstly, when the main characters get attacked by the enemy stand, they are initially confused on how the enemy attacked them, so they then have to figure out how it works, because the enemy won't openly explain the full abilities of their stand. Then, they have to think of a counter strategy by exploiting their weakness or using their surroundings in order to overcome the enemy, and then the fight ends with the enemy dying or being out of commission. Every fight feels like you're trying to solve a massive puzzle, and I love it when anime have fights where they do this type of formula. These fights feel more like chess matches and less like slugfests. Not that there's anything wrong with fights where it's just two characters beating each other up, because some of the greatest battle shonen have those type of fights, but I just love how stands require more problem solving and strategical thinking. And because there is a sense of balance in the stands, because of their stats being good in one area and bad in another area, it avoids the possibility of power creep, where the characters will keep getting stronger as the series goes on to the point where things will start to get crazy. Now don't get me wrong, you do have some broken stands like God Experience Requiem that can literally nullify any ability, and you have stands like Made in Heaven and King Crimson that can manipulate time, but for the most part, every stand has their strengths and weaknesses, which is great for a power system. You even have some stands that are initially seen as weak stands, but with the right stand user, they can make the most of what they have, which can make their stand dangerous. Let's take for Margio's stand, Little Feet, for example. Little Feet was looked at as the weakest stand in the organization, due to his lack of physical strength and its very slow shrinking power. But because Margio was smart enough to use it in an assassination attempt, the stand seemed more deadly and was able to make Naranjo struggle when he fought against him. Inversely, you have a stand like the Hand, which has the ability to literally erase space whenever it swipes his hand. But because Okuyasu is not very intelligent, the potential of the hand is wasted. So depending on the stand user, the stand can either reach its full potential or can dampen its potential. This is because once a person awakens their stand, they don't have a full mastery over it. They have to figure out how their ability works, and then they'll need to think of new creative ways to make them stronger. So the more creative you are with your stand, the more dangerous your stand can be. And then there are also stands that are very situational, meaning that they can operate differently depending on their environment. Red Hot Chili Pepper is a big example of this. Red Hot Chili Pepper is a long-range stand whose power depends on the amount of electricity around it. The more electricity it absorbs, the stronger it gets. When it absorbed the electricity from the electrical grid, his power was comparable to Crazy Diamond, which is one of the strongest stands in Diamond is Unbreakable in terms of physical strength. But when it was in the water, with no power source nearby, it weakened drastically. So because every stand is unique with their own strengths and their own weaknesses, every fight feeling like a chess match with a lot of strategy, and the several types of stands in the JoJo universe, I feel that stands are one of the best power systems in anime and manga. What is your favorite stand? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you want to see more JoJo videos, please like, subscribe, and thank you so much for watching.